And it is on this day, July 8th, 2023, that I finished Spear by Nicola Griffith. And I actually finished it this morning, so I started it last night, finished it this morning. I could have finished it yesterday, but I didn't want to rush it that much. And just to jump right in, fantastic book. I love it. It's very, very entertaining. It's not going to be on like my favorite books of all time list because it's a very short book and it only can have so much content in how short it is. It's pretty much just over the length of a novel, but I still loved it. So with all of that said, we'll jump into non-spoilers. Just to start off, I love the main character, Paratier. I haven't read many Arthurian pieces or Arthurian-inspired novels before. I know that part of Lord of the Rings was inspired by Arthurian works, with like Aragorn and stuff like that. But it's not something I've done much, and I was going to read Once Upon a Future King, Once Upon a Time, but I didn't. So I read part of it, but I didn't finish it. So this is kind of a new thing for me, and I figured I'd try it out because it sounded like it was good, and it was very entertaining. And I do know the story, even if I've never, like, explicitly read, like, a original Arthurian novel. So, main character Paratier replaces someone in that story, and we kind of start from the origin of her story, like, around when she's a kid, and work up to a temporary end of the story. If I were to compare it to other novels I have read, I'd probably compare it to Belgariad a bit in how it's like told. It's read by the author. I did the audiobook. It's read by the author, and she kind of just flows between everything she's describing, like it's a continuous thought. And I do kind of like it. It kind of fits the storytelling mindset. And there's also kind of a prophecy, and you're having the main character find out about their own prophecy as they go, just like in Belgariad. So I really enjoy that. There was some like mystery, and there was some bait, and then like you gotta like find out things, and then you saw everything come together for the character. Very satisfying. But even aside from that, I enjoy Paratier as a person, with the personality and her traits. First of all, lesbian. We're gonna do woo queer content. I love how plain and simple like her discovery was and how it's treated in the novel. Like flat out, she was like, "Nope, don't like men," and then was like, "Yep, I like that person." And there's no like, "That's weird," you know. There's no like, "Oh, I'm different," because she didn't realize that. She grew up in her own little, like, her own society with her mother. And so because of that, either attraction isn't weird. She just figured out which one fits her. So have that early on, and we have, like, just her growth, acknowledging that as she moves on, and then, like, later in life. And then even when someone else finds out later in the book, it's not a "that's weird" thing. It's just a "oh, you know me better now" kind of thing. So I very much appreciate how that regard of queer content this book is handled. It's fantastic. I am very glad to have seen it, and I hope that stuff like that happens more. And then on another level, there's some disagreement here on what the author was doing, but I read it a certain way, so let's talk about this. This is technically non-spoilers, but for the majority of the book, the main character refers to herself as she, her. Every other character, with like 2 exceptions, refers to her as a boy, man, he, him, all those kinds of things, including people she slept with. So the thing that stands out to me that other people disagree with is that it's never flat out said what her gender sign at birth is. And because it's never said, she could be pretty much anything. She could be a trans character, she could be a genderqueer character, she could be intersex, we don't know. And because of how like it's handled in the book, I love that. I love that we don't know. I love that there isn't any like certainty. We, in a way, regardless of whether or not she's trans, she can resemble a trans character in a novel because we don't know. I hope that makes sense. Because of how it's handled, she is experiencing like all these different sides of gender at the same time. And because she doesn't have dysphoria, that's why people just say that it's just cross-dressing. But I don't even know if we know if it's just cross-dressing. So because she lives that life with how she balances her gender and how she doesn't like tell people or correct people on her gender, I think that it can be interpreted many, many, many ways. And I just love the idea of writing a novel where it's never explicit, where maybe the character's trans, maybe it's not, you don't know, but she just lives her life as she is. I love that. I love that. I love that so much. So, to the people who left reviews saying she just cross-dressed, I think there's an assumption made by saying that, given that every other character didn't realize it. But I think that's fine. She could be anything. Anything. I love that. I love that so much. I don't know if that was the author's intention, but as I was reading it, that's how I've started to put my perspective. I like the idea of never actually showing the reader what the truth is. So now I'm actually thinking about that with the novel I'm writing, if I'm gonna like do that kind of thing with my non-binary character, because that would be awesome. That'd be so cool. So that's just my layout. Really like that fact. So I think it's queer just overall. Like it has very many levels of queer, but also it has all kinds of diversity within the novel, just accepted as normal in the society. And something I really like, I read a quote from the author about this book. Something I really like is that the author flat out said, all of these kinds of people existed at the time, so all of these kind of people should be inside the book here. Facts. Facts, facts. So I very much respect that she did that. It's very much an entertaining story. So I recommend just picking it up and reading it. It's very short. It's just 6 hours if you have the audiobook. I was on 1.25 speed too, and that was very comfortable at 1.25 speed. So if you haven't read this book, it's very short. I think it's something you can just read in an evening. I do recommend it because it's just interesting, you know. It's not necessarily fast paced because you're still like living through a long period of her life, but it's interesting how the story progresses, how different things like bait you in, and you think that like something like she succeeded in something, and then you find out the truth of the situation. And you also, again, there's an allure in the unknown about the main character because she doesn't know about herself, and so we get to explore her finding out her identity in the novel. Not in a queer context, but it applies as well. So I think that's it for non-spoilers. I love the main character. I love this book. It was very fun to read. And it reminds me of Belgariad. There's another book it reminded me of, and now it's escaping me. So we might just have to move on. Belgariad and something else. I don't remember. Something else. But it's very fun. Highly recommend. The author also has other novels, so I'm actually kind of considering looking at some other novels the author wrote because I very much like this book. Alrighty, with all that, we'll move on to spoilers. I don't actually have much in the way of spoilers. I'm probably just going to comment on just some of the plots that caught me by surprise. Okay, spoilers. To start off, I want to talk about the mother, Ellen. At first, I thought that she was kind of doing a poll from, like, the aunt figure from Belgariad. I thought that she was kind of doing an Aunt Pole role where she was like educating our main character Paratir as Paratir was growing up by telling all these stories and like warning Paratir of the future. That's how I read it at first. And then we find out, like, we're doing like one set of stories per season, right? So we finally make it to, I think, fall. I think it was fall. It might be another season. We make it to one of the seasons where the story is that Paratir doesn't know her name yet, by the way. So at this time, her name is changing every season. She realizes that she doesn't have a name, and the people she finds in society actually have names. So she starts to keep track of this. And I believe she's called Tur, or Toll. Is it Toll? Oh no! Oh no, what was it? Toll. What was it? Okay, well, while I was Googling, I found the quote that the author said that I love. So I'm just going to include the quote here as part of spoilers. In the author's note, she writes that Crips, queers, women, and other genders and people of color, we are here now, we were here then, so we are here in this story. Historical accuracy also meant that this could not be a story of only straight, white, non-disabled men. I love that. I love that on so many levels. And all of those identities were mentioned in the novel, like each one of them. And I love how it just blended in. Like, it didn't, like, stand out. I mean, like, I obviously noticed all of them, but it's not like there's, like, some, like, glaring spotlight each time it comes up. It's just subtle. It's just part of their lives. And I love that. It was very, very, very well done, and I highly respect that. So, fantastic. I cannot find the name that she was called, but the name she was called in that season meant something like slave, or like something I am owed, or like her names meant things like that. And when I started to realize the mom was saying that as in Paratir is the slave to the mom, I was like, oh, this is starting to sound bad. And the mom started to sound more and more crazy as we went along. I say crazy respectfully here. And I was starting to feel that balance of, is this mom giving Paratir any kind of trauma, question mark. I was wondering that as we were going along. And later on in the novel, Paratir flat out says, like, Paratir acknowledges that her mom kind of guilt-tripped her, made her forget her memories of her mom, made her forget all kinds of things, and didn't really treat her as a person because she was something that needed to be protected. And so that becomes a kind of theme in the story, a kind of middle ground, kind of light theme in the story, is that Paratir wasn't quite treated as a human for a large section, and then when she finally comes across someone who knows what she is, that person calls her unclean offhand, and that leads her into this big, like, ethical dilemma on who she is and how she feels and if she is human, if she's not human, all those kinds of things. But as time passes, she starts to realize that she can act human and she can fit in with the humans. And so she finds that balance and she starts to, like, figure out what she can do to follow the clean path of her life. I think clean is a very specific word used in the novel. I think the reason those words are chosen is because it can be kind of uncomfortable to call something unclean. So yeah, that's a lot of the story, is her figuring out, like, I can balance the immortal side of me and the human side of me because she's born of each one. We don't actually know much about her father, Mananen. Oh god, I'm already forgetting what all of the names were. I should have filmed this right after I finished the book. Um, we don't know much about her father overall, but I don't think we even need to know much about the background and what the Holy Grail is and what it does and all of those items to be able to follow the story and understand it. So, I think it's fantastic. Do I have anything else to add? I love most of the kings. I obviously don't like Kay. Kay's kind of obnoxious, but he's Kay. It's what we expect, you know. Like, there's some moments where he's, like, good, and we can tell that he actually has some respect on some level. But he's also just annoying. But most of the other knights I very much liked. And then how he met the knights, the whole scene of where Paratir first steps up and hits him with the still sheathed blade. Fantastic. Very entertaining. And then when she actually starts fighting, the fight sequences, I've talked about this many times now, but I have aphantasia. The fight sequences were great for me. I could follow everything that's happening for the most part. During the horse fight sequence with the spears, that was harder for me to follow. But even if I couldn't actually follow what was happening and like picture what was happening, it was still very entertaining because we're in her perspective and we're hearing her thought process and we're hearing her be able to detect and sense what's going to happen next. And because of that, it still gives that adrenaline rush as a reader. It's not actually an adrenaline rush, but it's wow, I just lost the word I was going to say. It grips you and pulls you into the novel. So, very much appreciate all the action sequences. It's a shame that Ellen ended up dying, but she got a proper burial and everything at the end. And Paratir's partner was saved. So, I actually wasn't sure if Paratir's partner was actually going to live or not for quite a bit. I was kind of like, it could go either way, but she did. And eventually they went back and they ended up not giving the king an heir, which I think was also the right choice. So I really like the twist at the end where they ended up not following the path that we thought we were going to be following towards the third section of the novel. Okay, I think that's all I have. So we'll jump into what's new and what's next. I don't own any new books because it's only been 2 days. But we are going to read Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card next. I'm going to start that maybe tomorrow, probably Monday. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I plan to actually work on my own stuff tomorrow. So, maybe not. But here we go. We have Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card. This is a very famous sci-fi novel. People relate it to Dune. I'm not going to do that until I have read each work. But I hear Ender's Game is absolutely fantastic. So we're going to watch it. We're going to read it. We're not going to watch it. We're going to read it. It is 11 hours and 20 minutes. So slightly longer than Midnight Riot. I don't think it'll be that slow for me. I'm going to start on normal speed and then speed it up if the narrator sounds good. Also, if the narrator doesn't sound like a good narrator, then I might switch novels. I haven't actually listened to the sample yet, so hopefully we have a good audiobook narrator for my ears, and we can finish this book. And then after that, I actually got my hold for The Word is Murder, so that might be next. And I finally placed a hold for Moon Over Soho as well. I don't actually know if that's how you say that because I don't live in the UK/London. You'd think I'd know, but I don't. But yeah, I'll have The Word is Murder very soon, and then hopefully Moon Over Soho. I think it's Soho. Doesn't have that long a wait. It says 5 weeks right now, and it says I'm 5th in line. But I think because it's a short novel, it won't actually be that long. So, we'll figure it out. But that's all I have planned. And I'll continue reading Way of Kings. Slowly. Hopefully. If it turns out that I finish Ender's Game and I'm still waiting for Word is Murder, I might also start A Master of Jin. I bought Spear and A Master of Jin together, so I kind of want to read them together. but I don't want to be reading 4 books at once, because this would be 3. This would be 3 books at once. It still feels kind of wrong to do, so we'll see. We'll see. Alright, I believe that's all I have though, so I'll get started on Ender's Game, and I'll see you all sometime. Don't know when. Highly recommend Spear. Alright, bye-bye.